It started like any normal day in the school holidays, but ended in horror and tragedy. 3 innocent young girls killed in a frenzied knife attack.
And when I went out, he's holding her like a 6-year-old girl in his arms, covered in blood, trying to save her.
Families devastated, a nation in shock, and a community in mourning.
I couldn't stop hugging it. I slept in a bed last night next to it. I couldn't stop staring at it because it's just, you expect your children to be safe.
It is hard to think of anything more innocent than a Taylor Swift dance class at a summer holiday club for 6 to 11-year-olds. But that was the target for a masked attacker with a knife.
And as people came to terms with the horrific events, disinformation spread and tensions erupted onto the streets.
They've been clashing now violently with police, throwing objects at the police, clashing with officers in riot gear. And this really is a very tense situation and an already horrendous time for Southport.
The accused, a teenager, barely more than a child himself. This is the story of how the sleepy seaside town of Southport became a scene of terror and grief, how a dance class became deadly, and how anguish turned to anger. The horror began just before midday on the 29th of July, a week into the school holidays. Emergency services were called to Hart Street nearby after reports the masked attacker had entered a Taylor Swift-themed dance class. When they arrived, they found multiple people, most of them children, suffering serious stab wounds. Our correspondent reported on the chaotic and distressing aftermath.
The scale of the emergency services response in this residential road only goes so far to reflect the horror that unfolded here this lunchtime. Witnesses who saw mothers screaming in the street, young children among those injured in a series of stabbings at a summer holiday club. Colin owns a garage next door. He told me what he saw was like something out of a horror movie after seeing a masked man arrive in a taxi.
He was literally covered up, had a green hoodie on and a paper, you know, one of them COVID masks. He went next door, I went back into work. The next thing, one of my colleagues screaming down the phone at me, "You need to get out here now." And when I went out, he's holding her like a 6-year-old girl in his arms, covered in blood, trying to save her. He'd been in the building more or less and got her out. He needs a medal. And then the others were coming out, and then I noticed some more on the floor over here.
The North West Ambulance Service said it had treated 8 people for stab wounds, some of them taken to Alderhay Children's Hospital, as Merseyside Police declared a major incident. Officers were called to Hart Street in Southport just before midday. ITV News understands the incident happened at a community hub and pregnancy care centre where a Taylor Swift dance and yoga workshop was being held. Armed officers seized a knife and made an arrest. Now police say a 17-year-old is in custody. Ryan's mother lives on the street. He didn't want to show his face but told us what she saw.
There was a woman who was screaming, saying that her child is lost, she can't find a child. And they let her into the cordon. She ran down and the mum said all she could hear was screaming and crying, saying, "That's my child, that's my child."
This evening, a house 5 miles from the scene was being searched in connection with the incident, which police say they do not think was terror-related. The Prime Minister called it horrendous and shocking as the Home Secretary spoke in the Commons.
I know the whole House will be very concerned at the extremely serious incident that has taken place in Southport. All of our thoughts will be with the family and loved ones of those who are affected.
Tonight, in this community, that sense of shock is matched by disbelief that a summer holiday activity aimed at such young children could be targeted in this way. I've spoken to a number of people here today who witnessed the harrowing aftermath of this incident, many of them just too upset to go on camera and talk about it. Like the 2 women just a little bit further down the road from here who watched a woman pull up in a car It was a mother who'd bundled her daughter into the back seat of the car, having heard what had happened. Her daughter had been stabbed. She was desperate. She didn't know what to do. The women tried to advise her, but she was too scared to come back up here to seek medical attention from the ambulances which had arrived at that point. I spoke to a community volunteer who had taken food and water and supplies to the emergency services who were mustering at a secondary school just round the corner from here. He realised when he was there that that was where parents were being told what had happened to their children. He said he had never heard screams like it.
As people struggle to come to terms with what happened, news emerged confirming the worst fears of so many locals. 2 children had died. Others were in hospital, some in a serious condition, fighting for their lives. Meanwhile, the police investigation was moving fast, trying to establish a motive. Our teams on the ground obtained exclusive footage of a masked figure filmed in an area where police were investigating shortly before the attack.
Around 20 minutes before the attack, this footage was filmed on a doorbell camera 5 miles away. Obtained by ITV News, it shows someone wearing a mask pacing around outside a house that's now being investigated by police. 2 hours later, armed officers are filmed arriving at the house. It followed the arrest of a 17-year-old boy. Police say the motive is unclear, but described it as a ferocious attack.
Watch the reflection in the car window. A suspected mass murderer is about to come into view. Where is he going? Hood up and face hidden behind a mask at just gone 11 on a sunny Monday morning. 5 minutes later, he returns, striding towards the direction he came from. This time, we see one hand hidden inside his hoodie, his face still covered with a mask.
The suspect then walked back around this corner to a property here on Old School Close. We know at some point he called a taxi to take him to his target, a 15-minute drive away on Hart Street.
The following day, the death toll rose again, and for the first time we saw the innocent faces of this tragedy. Ben Chapman reported on the tributes from their heartbroken families.
9-year-old Alice De Silva Aguiar, 6-year-old BB King, and 7-year-old Elsie Stankham. 3 girls whose parents yesterday dropped them off at a holiday club and today released statements in their memory. Alice's family said, "Keep smiling and dancing like you love to do, our princess. Love from your hero, daddy and mummy." BB King's family said, "No words can describe the devastation that has hit our family as we try to deal with the loss of our little girl, BB." And Elsie's head teacher said she was a kind and caring friend to all who met her and was adored by everyone in our community. All day they've been remembered by people they never met. Generations brought together in sorrow and anger at an attack which has hit too close to home.
It's the same room that my son played for hours in. People want more answers, people want to know what's going on. People aren't happy.
I had to take them out the club myself this summer because I don't feel like it's safe anymore.
Close to where yesterday they'd been confronted with such horror, the emergency services were among those adding to a wall of flowers as stories emerged of other heroes. Leanne Lucas, now fighting for her life in hospital after trying to defend the children, had organised the Taylor Swift dance class. The singer paid her own tribute, posting, "The horror of yesterday's attack is washing over me continuously and I'm just completely in shock. I'm at a complete loss for how to ever convey my sympathies to these families." The Prime Minister travelled to Southport this afternoon to thank those who he said had undoubtedly saved lives in the immediate aftermath. His thoughts with the victims' families.
I'm a father and I cannot imagine what they are going through. But I also wanted to come here as quickly as possible to say a personal thank you face to face to all of you.
But later, after laying a wreath at the police cordon,
"When are you going to change for our children? Our children are dying here because of you."
He was heckled, a measure of the anger many people are feeling here.
Is that it? Is that all the time you've got for us?
Alice De Silva Aguiar died from her injuries in hospital. Her family, originally from the Portuguese island of Madeira, where her aunt Alberta told us of the trauma of losing her happy, smiling niece.
It's very painful. Nobody expected this, even more so in the way that it happened. A tragedy. Nobody in the world is prepared for this.
Another aunt, Ana Jesus, told our reporter she couldn't believe her niece was gone.
She's not deserved to be killed like that. She's just a lovely girl. She's always happy. She's always have a smile on her face. She loved dancing. She loved singing. She loved makeup on. She loved to have her hair nice. She likes to dress a princess. In the end, I went to Liverpool to meet them. I saw them. I'm there when she passed away. With the mum and dad. My heart is breaking because I feel for them. I don't know how they're going to survive. Sometimes we think it's not real. Sometimes we think it's not happening. She will come back. When I went and see her, when I look at her, I think she's alive. For me, she's still alive. I hold her hand and I kiss her. For me, I think she's still alive.
How unfair does it feel?
Very unfair. She just, someone came, took her life. So much to leave, so much to do for the world, and someone just come and take her life.
How do you feel about the person who allegedly did this?
Angry. Angry. What is in his head? I don't feel sorry for him at all.
And memories of Alice are bittersweet.
She is very happy. She loves ice cream.
How does it make you feel looking at that picture now? Is it hard?
Hard. Very hard. I'm not going to see it anymore.
On Tuesday evening, the town all but stood still as hundreds of people gathered to share the grief and show support for the families affected. Stacey Foster witnessed the emotional scenes of solidarity at the vigil.
It could not have been more of a contrast to the protests that were to come. This was an opportunity to show compassion and togetherness.
For the fact that we all care, that we all support each other, that we've all just holding each other's hand, giving each other a hug, just making sure that everybody is okay.
Families holding their loved ones close in support of those at the centre of this local tragedy.
We came just to show our support for the families, didn't we? To show we're behind them 100%, and this should never ever have happened.
It does resonate. You know, you sometimes see it on the news and you think, oh, it's London, you know. Yes, it doesn't happen often, but it's more likely to when it's your own town. It really does hit home.
Myself and my daughters were at the Manchester Arena bombing, at the Ariana Grande concert, and I feel like this community has come together in the same way as the Manchester community did as well. And I think while humanity can be really evil at times, it can also be really beautiful.
There were moments of absolute quiet, mixed with loud applause. The vigil was over in 15 minutes, but the crowd stayed for far longer. The Reverend Rachel Bray believes the wounds on this whole community will take a long time to heal.
There won't ever be an end, because yesterday will always be in the memory of this community. Something you never want your town to be famous for, is it? But it's going to be a day that is going to be in our memory now for a very, very long time.
On one of the darkest days in the history of this town, the community spirit shines. And at a time when there are just no words, the message of togetherness came through loud and clear.
But as the town united in peaceful mourning, police grew increasingly concerned about the disinformation being spread online.
There's been a false identity of the suspect circulating online. I've seen that identity and I can confirm it is absolutely wrong. Unfortunately, it's been shared millions of times and police are quite concerned now about this, the way this kind of information spreads very quickly online. And just to be clear, the only reason we aren't naming the suspect is for legal reasons. He's under the age of 18. It might be in the future that those legal restrictions are lifted, particularly if he is charged, and we are then able to talk about who the suspect is.
And police were right to be concerned, because hours later tensions erupted onto the streets as a mob descended on the town. The large crowd were thought to be supporters of the English Defence League. Paul Brand witnessed the violence.
For the second day in a row, Southport has been under attack. Just hours after stopping the knifeman, Merseyside police faced another assault. This crowd weren't welcomed by locals. We don't know where they streamed in from, but they're believed to be supporters of the English Defence League. Just before 8 o'clock, they met outside a mosque in the town, where a few hundred people threw bricks and fireworks at the windows. The suspect behind yesterday's attack isn't known to be Muslim, but a connection was drawn nonetheless.
There are police dogs arriving now here in the centre of Southport, just up to the junction here where we've seen protesters, a crowd here throwing objects at a mosque that is just on the corner of this junction here. They've been clashing now violently with police, throwing objects at the police, clashing with officers in riot gear. And this really is a very tense situation and an already horrendous time for Southport.
At one moment, even armed police were pushed back.
3 innocent kids are dead, mate. 7, 6 and 9.
Before we decided it wasn't safe for us either. As the violence escalated, it left at least one officer with injuries. Others escaped their van being set alight. Tonight, grieving families are kept awake as helicopters circle Southport once again. Protest, disturbing what chance they had of any peace.
In fact, more than 50 police officers were injured in that night of violence. The following morning, our correspondent Stacey Foster was there as the scale of the damage became clear.
As the people of Southport woke this morning, they had to deal with the aftermath of yet another trauma. Around the corner from where children were stabbed on Monday, the mosque was a target of an attack. Inside, terrified worshippers were trapped.
You better be careful, yeah.
ITV News was invited inside by the chairman as they assessed the damage.
God, it is worse than I thought, because I couldn't see that the whole building was shaking. Actually, it was a missile that they kept throwing at the, big bricks, and we can feel the heat and the smoke coming in through the window. Nobody here can't understand why we came under this awful attack. We don't understand why, but we would like just to say that we have absolutely nothing to do with this. We were just as devastated as anybody else in the community.
Merseyside police said 53 officers were injured in the violent disorder, 8 seriously with broken bones, cuts and concussion. 3 police dogs were also injured. 4 men in their 30s have been arrested, and the chief constable has admitted she is worried it could happen again.
Please be reassured, the communities of Southport, we are absolutely planning for that. Please be reassured, the communities of Merseyside, that we are planning now for what might take place this evening and what might take place over the weekend.
Suzanne's shop was broken into and looted. She can't believe what's happening to her community.
Despair, really despair of why this is happening to us. Why do our community's already suffered this week? There's children been killed this week, stabbed to death. Why on earth? We don't deserve this as a community. Why are they doing this to us?
Oh, thank you very much.
But at times like these, the kindness of strangers is a powerful antidote. And here they have pulled together.
We've been doing lots of sweeping, picking up
bricks and doing that all bit. And we've been down here for 2.5 hours.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, no problem.
Liam turned up at the mosque and offered to fix the broken windows.
You know, this mosque has been here all my life. It's what we've always known, you know, to be a part of our community. So we just want to show our support.
Once again, they have had to pull together, and this community are determined to show that they will not be divided.
It was the middle of the night, 3 days after the stabbing, when police called a press conference at short notice.
The Crown Prosecution Service has authorised Merseyside Police to charge a 17-year-old boy of Banks, Lancashire, with 3 counts of murder and 10 counts of attempted murder, following the tragic incident that took place in Southport this week.
That boy couldn't be named because of his age, until a few hours later, a shock decision from the courts.
In the last few minutes, the judge in court in Liverpool has decided to name the 17-year-old. He is Axel Ruder Cabana.
He arrived at court protected by a heavy police escort and the cloak of anonymity. But after 2 days of violence fueled by misinformation, the judge said people should know who he is. 17-year-old Axel Ruder Cabana covered his face with his sweatshirt as he sat in the dock, refusing to speak, even to confirm his name. This is him as a child, around the same age as the girls he's accused of murdering. A boy born in Cardiff who moved to Southport as a child. The decision to name a 17-year-old is unusual, but Axel Ruder Cabana turns 18 next week, and the judge said there was a clear public interest in naming him now to remove some of the mystique around his identity online, which outweighed any concerns about his welfare. Close to the scene of Monday's attack, people have been leaving soft toys in memory of the victims. But as people continue to comfort one another, there was finally some better news. 2 of the injured girls have been discharged from hospital. 5 more who were critical are now stable.
That's made my day, and all we can do is just, you know, hope the best for everyone else.
We can heal their wounds, we can't heal what's happened to them and what's in their head.
Axel Ruder Cabana left court amid sirens and shouting, remanded into youth detention.
Why would anyone want to turn the joy of children dancing to Taylor Swift into the terror that unfolded?
So many parents will drop their children off at holiday clubs over the course of the summer. These parents, when they came back to pick them up at midday, found just the most unimaginable scene.
It's a beautiful place, love living here, and to hear of such devastation, awfulness in such a short period of time is unbelievable.
It's a massive loss to the town already that we've lost 3 of the young girls already. I've grown up in Southport all my life, so this is just, it was a huge shock to hear something like this could have ever happened.
The unspeakable events in Southport will live on in the memory of this community. The loss of 3 little girls in such appalling circumstances represented the worst of humanity taking away the best of it. They simply wanted to dance and play that day. Their smiling faces, a glimpse of the love they brought to their families.